Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes when everyone joins. We do have ASL interpreters available today, and you can pin them to your screen. Additionally, we have live captions available, and you can enable them at the bottom of your screen. I'll remind everyone we have live captions available, and you can enable them at the bottom of your screen. Today, we have one of our students here, Jonathan Cable, and he will be reading our land acknowledgement before we get started.
Colorado State University acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations and peoples. This was also a site of trade, gathering, and healing for numerous other Native tribes. We recognize the Indigenous peoples as original stewards of this land and all the relatives within it. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties nations have to their traditional homelands are renewed and reaffirmed. CSU is founded as a land-grant institution, and we accept that our mission must encompass access to education and inclusion, and significantly, that our founding came at a dire cost to Native nations and peoples whose land this university was built upon. This acknowledgement is the education and inclusion we must practice in recognizing our institutional history, responsibility, and commitment.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. My name is Janelle Beavers, and I serve as Vice President for Strategy. I'd like to turn it over to President McConnell to welcome you all today to our information session.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Janelle. I'm so delighted to be here with everyone this afternoon, and I want to welcome all of you and thank you for taking the time to participate in this important information session. As you know, we launched Strategic Transformation in September with the executive leadership team and deans to come up with a framework that we could present and then have all of you participate in a long process of providing input and feedback for a more refined framework. We're here today to help you understand that process. We've done this because we've received a lot of questions about not only what we have done, but where we are right now and where we will be going in the future. Our university has been incredibly agile during COVID, and we've learned so much about ourselves. Everyone I know has been on this, working so hard to be flexible, innovative, to solve problems, and to make all of those changes in a way that is equitable and just. It's so important that we build on that momentum of what we've learned in responding to a crisis to being able to plan for the future. We never know what's in front of us, just like COVID. But we do know that change is going to happen, and we can take charge and be prepared to meet the challenges that come with change. So we'll be talking today about the process that we're using to build our strategic transformation, both the framework, the ultimate plan, and implementation. And I'm delighted to have and welcome Janelle Beavers, our Vice President for Strategy, to be with us today. Janelle, it's really extraordinary to have you join our team. Thank you so much, and we're ready to get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Joyce. I am really excited to be joining this community and getting to work on the CST process. So I first want to introduce our panel today. They have all been a part of the process today, and I know they're really excited to talk to all of you. We have Provost and Executive Vice President, Mary Pedersen. We have Blanche Hughes, our Vice President for Student Affairs. Blake Naughton, Vice President for Engagement and Extension, Ro Bubar, our Interim Vice President for Diversity, Alan Rudolph, Vice President for Research, and Ben Withers, who's the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts. We're going to kick off the panel with you, President McConnell. Could you please walk us through the process so we can get a sense of where we are, where we've been, and what we have to look forward to? I think we have a slide to help people out with this.
Excellent. Thank you so much. For everyone who's participating today, I thought it would be helpful to share with you a timeline so you have a sense of not just where we are now, but where we've been and where we're going. So if you start with 2018 through 2019, when I became the president. So 2018 was before I was president. 2019, July 1, I became the president. And during the 2018-2019 year, before I joined you, there was actually quite a bit of activity engaging the campus community and the Fort Collins community in a series of focus groups and dine-arounds and surveys where people could participate in a process of identifying what were the most important issues for them at CSU. That ended in April 2019, but we took all of that information when I arrived and we poured all of that into the 2019 Fall Forum. There were more than 100 people at the Fall Forum. We considered all of that information and we began to move forward on how we wanted to engage in strategic transformation. What ended up happening is some work got done in the fall. We came back in the spring and were hit with COVID. And our strategic transformation energy shifted to being able to address the immediate needs presented by the pandemic. So when we returned in September 2020, we gathered all of our university leaders, about 60 people, and we began to create a framework. And I want to talk about why we chose the idea of a framework. And that was because this is not a campus who's been used to doing really wide-scale strategic transformation work. And so we wanted the framework to be an invitation to people to be able to participate in the process. So September 2020 to present, we've been working on creating the framework. Spring 2021, we are moving the framework out into the campus community, and we've been seeking additional input. And many of you have already been involved in sessions. There will be more, allowing you to continue to provide input as we go through the process. I want to pause here also and say there's a lot of other information gathering that gets done at CSU, including the culture surveys. And so they've also all been incorporated into the work we're doing. We consider all of the surveys that have been done to be very essential to the planning process. We're preparing the framework to go to the board in May. And that framework will be presented to the board for its review and initial input. We'll take that feedback from the board, and in June, we'll be presenting the draft strategic transformation framework plan with the collaborative work with colleges and divisions. So we'll present the framework in June 2021 to the board. The board will give us its approval to move forward. We will then have the transformation framework plan for action that will go to the colleges and divisions, and the colleges and divisions will then begin its work to incorporate additional feedback from the community and align existing plans if those divisions and colleges have them with the strategic transformation plan, And if they don't have them already, then they'll be working on a process of creating strategic transformation that aligns with the overall campus strategic transformation plan. That will all conclude by December 31st of 2021. And January 2022, we begin the process of plan revisions and implementation. One of the things I want to mention about transformation versus just having a static plan is transformation is something that goes on all of the time. And so this is not a plan that we'll draft and we'll sit somewhere and we'll never go back to it. We're going to have an active process of planning, of doing, of reflecting on outcomes, and then replanning. And so we'll be in this constant cycle of evaluation. So I hope that that helps everyone understand where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And I'll hand it back to you, Janelle. Thank you very much.
Thanks, President McConnell. Vice President Rudolph, I'd like to turn to you next to talk a little bit about just getting to the basics with what is a framework and how it's different than the plan that we're gonna be developing.
Yeah, I think, thanks, Janelle. We were talking about a journey we're on together, and when you start a journey, one that is courageous, you have to really focus on the foundations, and the framework is really a woven set of strong foundations that we've built together that really addresses some key values and principles, and frankly addresses some of the priorities of our day with existential threats from things like climate and health, so that we really recognize what we're good at, what we believe in, and we tried to put that into a framework, which is these strong interwoven foundations. Now our challenge is to come together and, as President McConnell said, bring what's excellent as we build the plan, but also challenge ourselves in a dialogue to come together and inspire each other about what could we do together and amplify the excellence we're already in, and identify new areas that we might like to go together to solve some of the problems of our day. And we're uniquely positioned to do that coming out of COVID with the resilience we've shown. So what are our programs of priority that we want to build on, and what's new areas for us to strive for excellence in? These will be the hard work ahead as we build a plan around these strong foundations of this framework that we're just sharing with you. Thanks, Janelle. Back to you.
Thanks, Vice President Rudolph. I appreciate that. I'd like to talk a little bit about the feedback that we've been getting. Vice President Naughton, Dean Withers, and Vice President Hughes, you've done significant feedback sessions. So I'd like to cover a little bit about how this process is working. Vice President Naughton, can you talk a little bit about how we're gathering data from folks?
Yeah, thank you very much, Janelle. And this is really the most important part of the process, I believe, and maybe that's because the Vice President for Engagement, but reaching out to the campus community in the way that we are engaging to get connection to what we're trying to do is critical. And I want everyone that's participating in this session to recognize that the leadership team with President McConnell's leadership is devoted to iterating through. When we talked, I love that President McConnell said the first thing we do in January 2022 is start revising, that these are living documents that we listen over and over again. So right now, we have a lot of feedback already in the past few weeks since the draft framework has come out. The latest numbers that we just got in comes first from individual surveys. And we have 286 individual responses right now. If any of you on this haven't yet taken the time to respond, we can drop into the chat the link to the individual surveys, and we would welcome your continued feedback that gets aggregated, coded, builds a better understanding of what everyone as individuals is participating in along the way. In addition to individual surveys and individual input, we're having lots and lots of group meetings by college, by division, by department, on campus and off-campus stakeholders have been involved in that. So our student community, our staff community, our faculty community, donors have been involved, community members and advisory board members external to the university, elected officials, local community members here in Fort Collins have been invited to these group meetings. We are now at 43 of these meetings have taken place. Several others are still in the planning and about to happen. Some 800 people have participated in those. And with those are coming group map sessions. And group maps is an online tool that some of you have encountered in this world of COVID and working remotely, where we aggregate feedback, have interactive, fun ways to get different kinds of groups to come together in that storytelling and figuring out where we are as an organization in those group maps. We've had at least 20 group map sessions run by the Center for Public Deliberation. Professor Martin Carkason's group and his students have done a terrific job helping our community to get even more information and data from those. 4 more are scheduled even just later this week, roughly 500 people participating. So it's large numbers of folks coming in and all these sorts of groups. Again, we've reached out to staff, the Administrative Professional Council, the staff, Classified Staff Council, faculty, including a special session of the Faculty Council. We really appreciate them hosting President McConnell for a special time talking this through. And of course, a variety of student groups, including ASCSU and other PIMSAC, and a variety of student groups have been soliciting feedback from our student community along the way. So I hope that what I commit to you is that information is all coming back in. And it's a lot of information to quickly be synthesized and turned around into saying, this is what our university did. They accepted our invitation to hear about, to understand more about what this university needs in this framework, and brought their voices to the table. And we're going to incorporate those voices in our, both this framework and our future planning as we go forward. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. Dean Withers, could you share some of the kind and the types of feedback that we've received about the framework?
Love to do so. Thanks for the opportunity. And what Blake has just described really resonates with me, because in the College of Liberal Arts, and I know in other colleges, we've had many opportunities for college town halls, department meetings, meetings with our chairs, etc. And the feedback has been very useful, very robust. So for one thing that we've heard was to make very clear the difference between a framework and a strategic plan, as Alan described. And that's helped us plan the next steps of feedback in our colleges with that particular feedback. Something else that we've found is that the faculty and the staff and the students at our college want to know more about the next steps. They want to know how we're going to create metrics, how we're going to be able to hold ourselves accountable, how they're going to be able to put themselves into this process. And the great thing that I see about the entire thing is that in a traditional strategic plan, you usually have a line or two that reflects your unit, and it's something that comes down from on high that you have to do. But with the framework, this gives us an opportunity to read ourselves into this. Once we have that foundation, as Alan described, created, we're able then to imagine the way that we can contribute to that as we move forward. So far, it's been a very positive process in the college. Thank you for letting me share, Janelle.
Great, thank you. Vice President Hughes, what are we hearing from our students?
Thank you, Janelle. We are hearing a lot from our students in terms of knowing that they want to be involved in this process. So far, many of our students have been included in some of the unit feedback sessions for different areas where they might work. We know that we've had one session already with a smaller group. But what they want to do is they want to make sure that they're included, that they have things to share, that they have experiences, and that they also have a vision for where they would like to see this university and want to be part of that vision. And so we are really committed in wanting to make sure that we are including students. We know that they are critical members of our university, and they connect to every area, and certainly want to be need to be included in as we move forward. So at this point, we have had, as I said, one smaller forum, but it's not too late, students, that if you're on this, for this week, there are going to be 3 open forums where we're really encouraging you to come. Your voices are needed, and we want to know what you have experienced, what advice you have, what things you think we should be doing. In the chat, it'll be put in the chat of where you can go. There's 3 this week. We also thank those students who've already participated in any of your department meetings, and you also can still participate in completing an individual survey. We are also continuing to work on other ideas to make sure that we want to get as many students involved in this process as possible. it's important that we hear your voice, students, and those faculty, staff, others on the call. If you work with students, you're teaching students, you're around students, please encourage them to please share their voice with us. We can't do this, and we cannot do it well without the student voice.
Great, thank you, Vice President Hughes. I appreciate it. I'd like to move the conversation a little bit toward what we're going to do with all of this feedback that we've just heard about. Provost Pedersen, can you talk about what's going to be coming up in April with the feedback? What is it going to look like incorporating it, getting the framework ready to show the board? How are we identifying outlying feedback, and what are we going to do with all this information?
Absolutely. Thank you, Janelle. So as you can imagine, with the number of participants, the amount of feedback we have is quite significant. And right now, the core team has the job of really pulling all that feedback together and really looking at what of that feedback really belongs at a high level in our framework or foundational, and then what feedback do we want to keep for the next level of the plan. So all of the feedback is really important. I think the real goal is to make sure that we elevate the framework to be really representative of everything that we are shooting for in our strategic plans. So that information is being all pulled together now. It will be brought by the core team to our executive leadership team to make recommendations. Those changes, everyone will have a chance to see those down the road, but we will be bringing that information to the Board of Governors at their meeting. And so we're in the gather feedback stage, and then following that, we'll be presenting to the Board of Governors. And it's important to know that we anticipate feedback from the board, but this will not be really about resources, budget, or decisions at that level, but really just concepts, ideas, and values at a very high level from the board. We want to communicate to them what those core concepts, values, and what's really important to us. So that's the type of feedback we expect to receive from the board. And following this, then the next level will be drafting, begin to draft our transformational plan. And so this is when each of the units and the colleges will have an opportunity now to really start building out the details and the real work that we're going to be getting done. And we'll have all of that feedback that we've received that will fall at that level of the plan. And so the surveys that are open now will remain open. So we will continue to receive input. And we're excited about all of the input because this is a plan that needs to represent all of us. This is our campus, and we care about the staff, the faculty, and the students in terms of making this represent the direction that we're heading in. So following the last ring on this slide really is engaging the colleges in the division, and that will be the level we'll begin once we've received input from our Board of Governors.
Great, thank you, Provost. Interim Vice President Bubar, you lead a unit that already has really strong strategic goals that really fall all across campus, and you're really central to the university's work. Can you talk about how you see this alignment phase and engaging the colleges and divisions working from your lens?
Thanks, Janelle. Yeah, since the Office of the Vice President for Diversity has a history and has worked very closely with colleges, units, and departments to develop diversity strategic plans using a blueprint that included specific goal setting and best practices, provided metrics and outcomes and accountability to really advance equity. We're really hoping to work and to expand this effort that really aligns our critical work out of the VPD office as well as the RBEI within the broader plan. So we see those two as really coming together and being able to move forward what's been done in the past and to take the work that we have done and see that really come to fruition as the plan and the process moves forward. So we're feeling good about that. Certainly as part of the leadership team, we're feeling that we are stepping up and stepping forward to really ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion are included throughout the plan, and that that it's threaded throughout the plan and begins to operationalize DEI within the strategic process as we go forward.
Wonderful, thank you. So one of the big questions that we've gotten, and one that I want to ask you about, President McConnell, is about where the budget fits into this process. Could you speak to how you view the budget and the inner workings of the planning process with the budget?
Thank you, Janelle. It's a great question. And of course, budget uncertainty is much of what higher education has lived with for a long time, but the pandemic really threw that uncertainty into a completely different scale of uncertainty. And that's what we've been dealing with for the last year. We're not out of that period of uncertainty, but what we do know is that it will be much better if we have all of our strategic priorities aligned in making decisions about the budget once we know what it is. And so this is a way of collectively coming together, deciding who we want to be as an important, among the best land-grant universities in the United States, and looking at those priorities strategically, thinking about them courageously, keeping in mind budget constraints. How do we want to move forward in the future? And certainly budgeting and resource allocation will be part of that conversation once these strategies and priorities are in place. And I think that that will help us in a budget constrained time understand how we can make this university the best it can possibly be and address the things that people have said are our strategic priorities.
Great, thank you. So I have kind of a general question for each of our panelists. What is the one thing that you want people at this information session to come away with and understand about our process? I'm going to start with you, Vice President Hughes.
Thank you. Maybe it's two things, maybe not just one, but you know, as someone who has been at Colorado State for a little while, I've been part of many strategic planning processes, and I'm sure there's many of you on the call that have too. What I see really about this year, this one is so very different because we are really engaging the entire university in where do we want to go next? Who are we, right? And we want to hear those voices in ways that we have not done in the past. And so I see this as a very different process for us, where we're really trying to incorporate all voices, and we want to listen, and we want it to truly be all of us coming together, as President McConnell shared. Also, we're also in a very interesting time. We're in, you know, COVID. Like, who could have planned that, right? We're in this period in our history where we have COVID, we have racial injustice, we have social unrest, we have bias, we have political issues. I mean, what else could be hitting us right now, right? And yet, we have still come together as a university around our response to COVID, trying to keep our students, our faculty, our staff safe, as well as then trying to continue to educate. And that has taken all of us to do that. So we can come together and work together because we care deeply about our institution, our students, our faculty, our staff, our community. And so I see this, and the other message we've gotten is that the world is changing. And hopefully for the better. We have an opportunity to help transform us into the future, to address systemic racism and systemic injustice, right? And we have a chance to do that here where we have maybe some control. That's so big sometimes that it can be overwhelming. Here's something right now, right here, that we can do in helping to transform this institution to the institution and the university that we all want to see, that we all want in the future. Not necessarily knowing what that's going to look like, but all of us co-creating what that can look like for all of us as we move into the future. So that is what excites me, that we all have this opportunity to make meaningful systemic change. We need all of us to trust each other a little bit more and lean into this and give it a shot. Haven't done it before, but we can do it now if we just work for it. And that is what I think has been most exciting. And it's what our students want, it's what our staff and our faculty and our community, this is what we want, this is what we need. And I'm excited that we're having this opportunity to do this together.
Awesome. Thank you, Vice President Hughes. Provost Pedersen, I'm not sure you want to follow that, but
I know that was very inspiring. Thank you so much, Vice President Hughes. I have to say, I am really excited because I love strategic planning when it's going to really make a difference. And I see this as the opportunity to really develop an action plan. This is not going to be a plan sitting on paper that we're going to be ignoring. We are going to be prioritizing. We are going to be coming up with action plans about what we're going to focus on first, which we need to do. And then we're also going to develop metrics around it, accountability, and then report on it and be transparent. This is what we've accomplished and communicate. So for me, the exciting part is when you really say, okay, here's the plan. What are we going to do? And then really get some work done. So that's what really excites me. And what I really want to share is that we are going to be accountable. This will be a very transparent process, and we are going to communicate out and share about it.
Great, thank you. Vice President Rudolph.
You know, what excites me about the journey ahead is the learning we're going to do. I mean, we already have started to peer over into our neighbors' backyards and learn about what each of us are doing, what's important to us, even through the framework process and into the planning process. I think that is a really exciting opportunity. You know, Blanche mentioned COVID is bringing us together. We met new people and have new friendships and partnerships across the mission of this university because we came together and did something really important to all of us. And I think that's the spirit we're trying to capture. And that's a spirit of meeting new people and learning new things. And I think we're all in a university for a reason, because we're all really on a discovery journey. And so this is just another chapter, and it's an exciting one. Now, I've been in academia for only a short period of my career. I've been in industry and in government. And I've seen it work really well. And it works really well when people come together and really have a common set of values and goals and recognize both the individuality of what we each bring, but also find the collective value. And that's going to be an exciting journey. That's what excites me.
Wonderful, thank you. Vice President Bubar.
Thanks, Janelle. You know, I've scratched any notes I had, and I've really been thinking about, I think we're at a moment. I think we're at a moment that's very historical. I think folks in future generations will ask us what we did in this moment. And so it's going to really be on us. It's going to behoove us to think about what we do next. And COVID has been the metaphor for all of us. It has told us that we have to change. It has told us that business can't be usual. And we're going to have to look ahead. We're in a process, we're on a journey, we're on the road ahead, and we're at the very beginning of that. And we need each one of us to be asking to switch it up, to be reflective, to engage a more values-based way forward for our university, for our families, for our communities, and for ourselves. There is potential to have this process lead us further down the road, to move us from diversity and inclusion to operationalize practices and policies that truly address race, equity, and social justice. This framework provides a foundation for a process that we are trying to undertake, and it's designed to include and listen to your input. And as Vice President Hughes said, we have to lean in. This is not a process that we can sit back in. We have to be instrumental and a part of it. So is it perfect? No, it's a start. It's a way forward at a time that we are being asked to do so and to do so together. We're being asked to step up.
Thank you so much. Vice President Naughton.
Really appreciate all the different takes on why this is exciting. And I hope the participants in the seminar are sort of hearing all the ways that this reinforces this invitation to be a part of it. So what excites me about this, and maybe it's because of my role in engagement, but this is how the land grant matters in people's lives, our students, our communities, those who work here. And I think it took a risk for our president to enable a process where we start with a framework that invites everyone in, and then we build out from there so that people, that everyone can see themselves in this. And this is a plan that is thinking about the fundamentals of implementation so that those that are in our operations staff and housing and others see themselves built into this. It's about the way that we really aspire to the purpose of our teaching and our scholarship, and that aspirational statements around the green and the gold that invite many voices to flesh that out and say, what does this mean for how this land grant university matters in our communities and matters in our global world? And that's what gets me excited. So my takeaway from this that I hope that people also see and take away is that this is the land grant in community, and that community is from our minoritized communities on campus, our communities across the state, our communities across the globe, how we ought to take on the responsibility to be a part of that. And so how do you do that? How do you make an institution go that direction? That's a hard question. And I really appreciate what Vice President Hughes said about we got to go for it. We got to do it and take seriously the fact that we are in a leadership moment to run with that. And that's the message that I intend to bring out to our communities across the state. And they are excited by that. They're excited by a transformed CSU, acknowledging them and co-creating with them about how this university informs their lives. Thanks.
Thanks, Vice President Naughton. Dean Withers.
Yes, thanks. 3 quick points. First, I've been in so many meetings with my fellow deans, and I can tell you that they're committed to creating and implementing this process. They're a wonderful group of people, and we have a Provost Pedersen, who creates an opportunity for us to come together and share our thoughts in really exciting ways. She's an excellent listener. She's able to pull us together in ways that even 9 months ago, perhaps we didn't think that we could be able to do that. And that intention of listening is something that we take back to our colleges. So when we work with our departments, our staff and our faculty and our students, we're serious about wanting some substantive critiques of what we're doing. We want to engage with them in these conversations that will help make us all better, because we know how important it is that we lead our units, not only as our units, but as part of a university. So thank you, Janelle.
Wonderful, thank you. And last but not least, President McConnell, what do you want people to know when they come away from this session?
Thank you, Janelle. Everyone has said such wonderful things, it's hard to follow, but I want to follow with a whole cluster of C's. So I'm thrilled about the collective journey that we're on, that it's cooperative, that it's communal, that it's creative. I think about those as all of these important C's that we're engaged in. And they matter to me greatly because I think they matter to us as a community. Another C, if we all pull together in the way that we did to face down the pandemic, then imagine what we can do together. And some of those things that we can do together, if we really, really put our energy forward and face everything with great courage, is that we can actually take those values that we care so much about and we can incorporate them deep, deep, deep into the institution so that from the very grassroots, we're creating the kind of culture that we really, really want and that we've been searching for. We hear that from our students, we hear it from our faculty, we hear it from our staff. And so for us all to be able to contribute to this process, to look at the framework and help to develop that framework into a plan for action that actually transforms CSU is just an incredible opportunity. And it is a moment in time. I believe it was Vice President Bubar who said that this is a moment in time, a moment in history where we can build on something that was extraordinarily disruptive. And we can take that disruption, take all the learning that we got from facing it, and then turn it toward transforming ourselves and knowing the challenges that we have to face. And it has been an incredibly challenging year, not just because of the pandemic, issues of racial justice, issues of health disparities, issues of economic disparities and social disparities. And the fact that we can all come together and say, these are things that really matter to us. How are we going to incorporate that into action is something that's deeply meaningful, not just for me as a human being, but for this community. And as Blake said, reaching out across the state and knowing that these are things that really matter, whether it's to our urban communities or our rural communities. We have a lot to engage with, and we can really be a factor for change. So I'm just thrilled to hear all of these individual perspectives on why this matters. And I'm just really excited that we have this opportunity to face challenges, to be courageous in facing them, and then maybe be in a position to dismantle systems that aren't necessarily working for all of our people, and making sure that we're digging deep and making the changes that need to be made.
Wonderful, thank you. I really hope that that was helpful for all of our viewers. As a reminder, if you have just joined us, we do have ASL available, and you can pin our interpreters to your screen. Additionally, we'll have a live transcript available, and this information session will be recorded and posted for later viewing, so you can tell all your friends. I'd like to now get to our questions. We had folks submit questions in advance, and so we have some of those questions. And full disclosure, a lot of the questions covered similar topics. So some of them were combined so that we can answer as many questions as possible. So I'll start with our first question, which is, there is a tendency to design for the majority of people. This can have unintended consequences of leaving out the most marginalized. Can you speak to this tension? The most courageous of plans would be inclusive of all. How can we place these identities and experiences in the plan? Let's start with you, President McConnell, to answer this question first, and then I'll move to Interim Vice President Bubar.
It's such an incredibly important question, and we need to always be asking the question when we're designing, are we just designing something for the majority of people? Or are we remembering and attending to all of those people who have been historically marginalized? This plan will allow us to do that. And in fact, if we just look at the draft framework, there are already pieces of it there that really are designed to begin to drill down into how are our policies, procedures, our allocations, how are things really impacting our marginalized communities on campus. And I think that this gives us the tool and the framework and the collective sense of significance and priority to be able to do that. So the most courageous of plans, and I agree, are those plans that are willing to ask those hard questions and to be inclusive of all.
Thanks. Vice President Bubar.
Yes, that's a great question. And if we do just attend to the status quo, we will leave the most marginal people behind. So we understand that universities and land-grant universities in particular weren't necessarily designed for everyone in the same way. And so because of that, it will be important to center those that have experienced historical marginalization, that have been excluded. So it requires us to really step away from simply recentering ourselves and consider the ways in which the policies and processes have contributed to inequity over history. And by decentering that, it would also potentially develop our ability to be equity-minded, to really describe actions that demonstrate our capacity to recognize and address racialized structures, policies, practices that produce inequities. So that will be part of what we do. We'll have a focus in those kinds of ways that will help us to really support systemic fair treatment for all races, ethnicities, class, gender identities, and sexual orientations, knowing that that kind of results in really equitable opportunities and outcomes for everyone. Because when we're all feeling like we have a place on an individual level, on a team level, and within the structure, it's a very different world for all of us. So we're hoping that that's the road that we're on, and that's how we're going to attend to those issues.
Great, thank you. Our next question is a budget question. Given the current budget environment, why are we moving forward with this now? How will we be successful, and where are the resources for this transformation coming from? I just called a new President McConnell, but I think you should take a stab at this first, and then we can move to Vice President Naughton as well.
Thank you, Janelle. I'd be happy to do that. I don't want to repeat what I said before, so let me say that one of the things that we know is the Great Recession in 2008 was a huge disruption to budget. A lot of decisions were made then, but that's 13 years ago now. And we're facing new challenges. And I think that by doing the framework and strategic transformation plan, that we prepare for making critical budget decisions by establishing priorities, but not just from the top down, in an organic way, with a collective voice saying, this is who we want to be as a university, and this is what we value. And so having the opportunity to align our actual budget and budget processes with what we say we share as priorities coming through this process will really help guide us in making critical decisions going forward.
Thank you. Vice President Naughton, did you want to weigh in on the budget question?
Sure. I just have to say that there's nothing more important than doing this now, that when we are at moments of restricted resource, higher education institutions flail when they are not equitable. They are not strategic. They just really disperse cuts in ways that don't think about the outcomes for those affected. And I really appreciate President McConnell's leadership in getting us to a different paradigm of how we're doing this. So it's also, I think, even more importantly, this is how we grow. As a land grant, we need to make the case to our stakeholders, whether those are political stakeholders, to our students, to our communities that pay taxes to this institution, whatever it is, over and over again, of why we're here and what we're doing for them in teaching and research and service. And so if we're going to describe ourselves as a place that is helping a sustainable, thriving planet, describe ourselves as a place that is supporting a flourishing humanity, then we need to make budgetary choices based on that. And we need to make the case for those that support our institution, whether that's through appropriations or grants or gifts or hard-earned tuition money from our families, that's what we're going for, and that's what this institution is about. So if we don't build that foundation, even in a time of restricted resource, then we aren't going to grow the resource. And what I really love about being at this institution is we're going to engage with communities, and we're going to build, and we're going to grow that. And these budget difficulties are going to be in the rearview mirror soon enough, because we're going to go forward with this if we as a community commit to circling together, looking each other in the eye, raising all voices, and making the strategic choices of how this plan will get us where we want to go. So now's the time.
Thank you. So we got a number of questions kind of in this same space. So I want to go to a few different folks to help answer it. And the basic question is, how will my role fit into this process now as it continues and in the future? And I'd like people to specifically address how we're going to make existing employees, faculty, students, staff part of this transformation. So Provost Pedersen, I'd like to start with you.
Thank you, Janelle. In this foundational part where we're building the framework, we've been attempting to reach out all across campus, and we've actually had a map where we're tracking all the different groups that we're reaching to make sure that we haven't overlooked anybody. So we really hope everyone has had the opportunity up to this point in time, including not only group meetings, but individual surveys, and we continue to look forward to that input. So that's the foundational framework input. As we move forward with developing the full plan, we will be encouraging every single unit to continue to do the same type of work. And the exciting thing is that the deans and I will be meeting together, working on our plans together. We're going to be looking at academic priorities. We're going to be looking at interdisciplinary priorities so that we're building together. And so I think that's such a really exciting thing. I'll mention a really specific example that I'm extremely excited about. When I have looked at the plans for each of the colleges under diversity, equity, inclusion, I have been extremely impressed with the amount of work they've already done. What I'm really excited about is working with the VP for Diversity and our RBEI Council to coordinate those plans together so that we can prioritize and work to help each other with those plans. So I think that we have a lot more work ahead of time, and we are really hoping everybody finds their way to be engaged.
Great, thanks. Vice President Hughes, could you talk next on this subject?
Sure. If you're a faculty, staff, student, you're already part of the process. You're part of this institution. And so what your role will be partly is dependent upon you. Will you engage? Will you be part of the process? I think that's from an individual decision that you need to make, that we want you to make, and that as we are part of this transformation, being honest to yourself about how you can then connect, how you can get your voice in there, how you can ask good questions and challenge and help us to move forward. And there's a place for everyone to be involved, not only in your individual units, as Provost Pedersen said. That's a obvious place where you can share your voice. But the bottom line is, if you don't share your voice, if you don't share your opinion, if you don't, help us grow and learn from you and learn from other people as we start this process, then it's going to be hard for you to be part of it. But you're part of it now.
Wonderful, thank you. Dean Withers, could you share your perspective with us as well?
Certainly, glad to. First, I want to second what Blanche just said. I think that challenge is there for all of us to find a way of participating and encouraging others in our units to participate too. The people here in this town hall can be an ambassador to their units, to go out there and let them know where the resources are and the opportunities are. So we all have that responsibility. Also, specifically in our college, we are engaging in a process of creating our next version of our own strategic plan. Our current one expires this year, so it's time for us to create a new one. And the way we're doing that is starting at the grassroots level. We recognize that so much great work happens in our departments, and it's the students that and faculty are interacting in the classes. That's really where a lot of the action is. So we're asking each of our departments over the next 6 months to come up with a series of action items that are tied to their goals, to fix things that they want to fix or to find strengths and to push forward. And what we'll do in our college then is to take each of those from our 13 departments and our 5 interdisciplinary programs, and then we will thematize those to create a strategic plan for the college. So it really starts at that grassroots level, and that's an excellent place for people to participate there alongside your colleagues in the place where you live and work. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. A number of questions that we got were about equity. So I'm gonna ask a general question to a few people, which is how are we going to consider equity in this plan as it cuts across campus? I'm going to start with you, Vice President Rudolph, and then I'd like to hear from Provost Pedersen and Dean Withers.
So there are many dimensions to this question, of course, equity, even within the RBI initiative. So, you know, I'll address it from a certain aspect, and then Provost Patterson can continue and give the full breadth of some of the dimensionality of equity. But certainly, you know, in categories of research and those that participate in our research and scholarly activity, we look at equity across all categories of work within that. So even within the graduate students, are we looking at equitable compensation for our graduate stipends and things like that? We look at it in the context of postdoctoral programs, and we look at it in the context of making sure that we offer opportunities for international students and national as well as for US students. So, you know, there are many aspects to that we look at. I know in the research realm and the world of creativity, we know that the diversity of voices is so important to bringing resilient solutions forward. So by working on equity, we very much work on diversity at the same time and access to the great interdisciplinary teaming that is really propelling our research enterprise forward. And we look at that equity across all categories of both employment, you know, graduate student all the way to our compensation within our faculty. We look at it through the lens of gender, through ethnic diversity, a number of ways that we look at it in order to build up the strongest creative voices that really propel our enterprise. And I'll let Provost Pedersen make some additional comments.
Thank you, Alan. And I think you touched on a lot of points, and I just want to emphasize that one of our key institutional values that we have in our framework is diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. And in that description, we talk about a commitment to welcoming community of diverse faculty, staff, and students. And that really speaks to our recruitment and our retention. And so we need to look at all of our policies and practices around those efforts. We talk about in that retention, we need to look at the salaries, pay scales, and we have over the last couple of years been addressing our CCA faculty. We've had, we started our second task force this year. We're looking at salary equities across the different ranges. And we also are going to be looking at, even for our tenure track faculty, equity for teaching loads and research. And so those things are all important. We know that for people, we have to really think about all aspects of this. And this actually includes the process our HR department is undertaking right now, where they're looking at job titles and descriptions and making sure that we have equity across our campus. And so what I'd like to just emphasize is that this gets down to the policy level and the practices and processes, as VP Bubar mentioned, and those can be hard, but those are the things that we have to prioritize and then start to tackle them. So equity is a really top value that we have articulated very clearly in our framework.
Great. Dean Withers, did you want to jump in?
Sure. I think Mary and Alan have covered a lot of these important issues about equity. One of the others to cover is issue of governance. And that is that we have been working very diligently for the last several years to make sure that CCA faculty and staff are included in department governance, serving on committees, helping make sure that we do the right things within those departments. And I'll also point out that one of the things that's emerged over the pandemic is the important partnerships that we've formed with many of the task forces at the campus level with faculty council. So that's part of equity too, being able to have your voice heard in places where decisions are being made, decisions that have an impact on the everyday, things that go beyond strategic planning, but are in the here and now. And based upon those equity processes in terms of wages and also the governance issue, I think that bodes well for how faculty equity, particularly faculty equity, will be represented as we go forward.
Great, thank you, Dean Withers. Our next question is for Provost Pedersen, and actually I think it kind of falls in line with my role, so I might jump in as a panelist as well. The question is, if the resulting plan is left to be implemented by individual divisions, colleges, units, what steps will be taken to avoid silos and facilitate university-wide collaboration throughout the process?
So thank you, Janelle. I think this is where the accountability pieces really fit in. And I look forward to, at the level of the deans, bringing them together to prioritize how we're going to be approaching each of the different areas. Once we prioritize what is going to be the most important, we'll be sharing out those priorities together, and we'll be discussing our progress together collectively, and also looking for ways to communicate it. And so I think the communication plan is going to be really important in terms of breaking down those silos. And clearly, as this links back to budget, that will be an important driving factor. In terms of beyond that, I'm going to turn it back to you to share maybe what some of your initial visions around this might be.
Yeah, sure. So I think we're still talking through kind of the best way to do this. I think everyone knows that the university can be siloed and people fall into their little universe. And I view a central part of my role as bringing people together and hearing people's ideas and kind of breaking down those silos, which I think is a way to get different voices heard and to get people to work together to achieve these common goals. So I'm really excited about it. I think, a university is a place where there's so many ideas, both inside and outside the university, alumni, external constituencies, and hearing all those voices and bringing them to the table. So I think my role is going to be really important, and I'm super excited about it. So there you go. I get to be a panelist too. So we have one last question, and that's going to be for you, President McConnell. How are you going to hold all of us, hold leadership accountable, and ensuring that we have follow through and that we're bringing life to the voices that we're all and opinions and solutions that are offered up in this process?
Well, thank you very much, Janelle. It's such a great question because I think accountability matters so much in this process. And so one of the things that we will derive from the framework will be goals and metrics that we need to meet. And the degree to which we as leaders and other members of our community who are leading various units are able to move forward toward those goals, they will be held accountable for that. And that's specifically to the strategic transformation. But there will be outcomes from the strategic transformation as well. And that might be changes in policies or procedures or processes, and those will be incorporated into how we're evaluating performance. What we want to make sure is that if we establish processes and policies that we think through this collective process are going to be better for our university, better for our people, better for people who have been marginalized historically, then we want to make sure we're implementing them and carrying them out in the way that we planned. And so that performance, that way of measuring performance, where you're actually looking at what are the expectations and are those expectations being met, very important. And that's not to say in other circumstances they haven't been already, but not in terms of the strategic framework where we've established these collective priorities and we've all come together to say these matter to us so much that we're going to build in mechanisms of accountability. And following that, one of the things that people talk a lot about in terms of accountability are metrics. So let's say we're going to establish new goals for closing the equity gap, for students who have been marginalized in the educational system. If we're going to set those metrics, then we need to hold people accountable to meeting those metrics. And we have to figure out how we're going to do that. I like to think of it more as a scorecard than metrics just in and of themselves. Metrics, people tend to think of just numbers, you know, what are our numerical goals? But we also may have some qualitative goals, and a scorecard that holds us accountable for meeting those goals, I think can be really powerful. So accountability is something we absolutely have to build in to the ultimate plan. I also want to point out that I think it's important that we are going to have collective goals, and how those goals get fulfilled may be tweaked and modified at the local level. And so we have to make sure that all the way down the line, we're making sure that everything is aligned so that the entire university is moving toward the same goals.
Great, thank you so much. So I feel like there's been a lot of information for folks to digest today. So I appreciate everyone's time and attention, and really want to thank everyone for joining us today, and to thank all of our panelists. We really appreciate everyone's time and feedback. We hope that the feedback continues. And you know, this is not going to be the last conversation we have about this. We want to keep people up to date, so expect more information sessions about the process. We're really excited to continue talking about this and doing the important work. Like I said, this session will be recorded with ASL and closed captions, and will be posted on our Courageous Strategic Transformation website. We hope that you will refer your colleagues, your friends, your neighbors, if they weren't able to join us today. And as a reminder, you can look in the chat. The draft framework can be found at the link that's sent, and then we'll also put where you can fill out the survey if you wish in the chat as well.
Thank you, Janelle.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, panelists.
Thank you.
And thank you to all our participants.
Yes. Bye, everyone. Enjoy your evening.